on that note, that's nice. That's hold on. Let's compare. Let's share. Show and tell here.
Show and tell.
Marijuana. Oh, which one's? Who's that? What's that called?
This is called strawberry glue.
Ooh,
It's strawberry diesel mixed with Gorilla Glue.
that looks nice and dense.
My doctor gave me that for my mental health. It's crazy.
Here's what do you got, Nahum? Oh man, we
It's a
need to
small one.
we need to get Nahum stocked.
Lovely. Nice. I can smell it from here. Beautiful.
This one is what nice, a whole handful. Nice.
Ah,
We are
lovely.
small but many.
Yes, definitely for sure. So, guys, I have a couple of questions, if you don't mind me throwing them out there. Um,
Kushore Bay, by the way, Kushore Bay.
Kush sorbet. That sounds very nice. Very,
Question,
very nice.
question time.
So, you guys are war veterans. Over here in the UK, some of the private clinics, medical cannabis is only available through a private clinic. We have the NHS over here, which is like National Health Service, but for proper health, people are going private. So the private clinics will prescribe, and they do have an access scheme for war veterans, which subsidizes some of the costs. Um, as you guys are war veterans, has that always been has that always been some sort of access scheme in America? Because I know it sort of has come from there, but the amount of people that I've met, even just police and army that have PTSD and things like that, it's more and more and more common.
So
But
I'll speak specifically about the states, and then I'll turn it over to Nahum so he can address what it's like in Israel.
yeah,
I wish our other buddy here was here, Kowalski. He just got a new job, and he's
yeah,
got a gig bowling and stuff. So he's a and plus a family. So he's a busy guy these days. But he's been really active in the state of Ohio. I'm here in Arizona.
yeah,
Been active here in the state of Arizona. Also nationally, both of us have, and clearly internationally, right? That's how we met.
yeah.
Um, so a scheme. It's tricky. A one that's publicly acknowledged, no.
Hmm.
One that the United States government has been forced to acquiesce at certain points and provide access to certain individuals who can prove their case in court, usually from getting hemmed up first,
Yeah,
arrested, facing a felony, some years in prison over here. And
yeah,
it goes back to the first patient who was able to do that. The fight goes back to when they first, in 1937, passed the Tax Act.
hmm,
Testimony through Congress, there were people against it, the prohibition of cannabis back then. Um, and it's continued all the way up. And then throughout the decades, there have been certain people and groups who have been able to pierce the protective layer of prohibition, right?
right,
That keeps all these entities and people shielded from the gaze and questions of the public that they don't want
mm,
coming and knocking on their door. One of those cases was Robert Randall, who was able to get access to medical cannabis that was grown in the University of Mississippi and provided to him through what they had to coin a new program called the Compassionate Investigational New Drug Program.
right, yeah,
And they initially wanted to label him as a research subject. And he took exception to that because he was able to prove through studies, like various programs that he had been a part of, principally through the UCLA and his researcher, Dr. Hepler, who I believe is still practicing in UCLA, ophthalmology and stuff like that, working
yeah,
with people with glaucoma. Anyway, he countered and said, I'm not a research subject. I am a patient who's using this herb to treat a condition that has now scientifically been proven, and I've already beat you in court, so stop messing with me. And they were
Yeah.
forced then to capitulate and provide him with
Hmm.
federal grown ditchweed from the
Right.
70s. And then from that point on, veterans and others were petitioning the government. But again, like only the extreme cases were able to pass through the needle point to
Hmm.
get through to access from the government supply. They did everything they can to obstruct the people that were trying to find out about the program,
Yeah.
even more to deny access to the people that were starting to gain access within that system because they were either clever, were hooked up with a legal team, or were just that into it where that's
Yeah.
all they did. They just focused on that and then they were successful. But um, the very first AIDS patient in the
Hmm.
United States to gain access to medical cannabis was a veteran.
Right.
Yeah, uh, his name was Steve L. There's a story about him, his writing and his poetry and stuff like that on our website, ivlc.squarespace.com. You'll see like a black and white photo, CD and me. It's this a man
Right.
and his dog. That was the
Yeah.
very first AIDS patient to receive medical cannabis, and he was prescribed it. It came from the University of Mississippi through the
Hmm.
federal like exchange of
Yeah. Follow.
pharmaceutical processes and shit, right? So
Hmm.
there was a request from the Audie Murphy VA hospital in San Antonio, Texas, to the federal farm at the University of Mississippi to provide through the VA pharmacy access to this gentleman who had beat the government in court with his
Hmm.
medical cannabis. Now he eventually won, and again he was facing a felony. It
Yeah.
took years to win. And by the time he got access to the cannabis, he was only able to use it for like 3 weeks before he fucking died.
Oh, jeez.
But he got
Yeah.
it. But
Yeah.
he
You got
got
it.
it. And so since then, like veterans have been in this
Hmm.
specifically, like from the beginning of prohibition. And even as government guinea pigs, right? You
Yeah.
have the Panama experiments, you have MK Ultra, not just cannabis, LSD, acid, other
Yeah.
stuff. Let's see what this does to those fuckers, huh? And let's not even talk. Let's just put it in the water and watch them wander around the woods and shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I've done it.
all the way up until today with the Weed for Warrior project, with all the other stuff that's been going on. Again, Kowalski in Ohio with veterans ending the stigma, Nachum
Yeah.
in Israel, and each state is because the federal government has washed its hands basically and doesn't want to acknowledge this federal program, this pipeline that already exists.
Yeah.
They're
I
too
understand
busy
that.
saying states' rights, let the states handle it. So they're pawning
Hmm.
off the federal patients that are veterans, right?
Yeah.
Among others, there's federal retirees, there's politicians and other people who are federal beneficiaries of healthcare benefits, whatever the fuck it is,
Yeah.
after their
Yeah.
service to our country. We just happen to be in the armed contingent of that government service population. And
Hmm.
so, for instance, within the state of Arizona, they just passed some legislation that allows me as a veteran who has a certain percentage and a rated disability from the federal government to go to whoever the qualifying official is for the medical program for cannabis
Right.
in the state and say, hey, look, here's my federal paperwork. I need my certification for my marijuana license so I don't get fucked with, right? And
Hmm.
I can be in legal possession of a certain amount of cannabis and grow a certain amount of cannabis, right?
Right. Yeah.
For free. So there's no more fees associated with it, right? I don't know if it's gotten signed by the governor yet or not. It's recent, but
Right.
it's happening. You know what I mean? Now,
Yeah.
has a different experience, but it's interesting also.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, my friend.
Uh, we'll do the introduction later. I'll try to be coherent with the conversation.
Oh, no problem.
Um, um, Okay, so I think what Rico describing is pretty much similar here.
Yeah.
And the system in the US, from my perspective, the way the government works, and you have the federal and you have the states, it let in the federal system, the main government, drop the responsibility, hand in the case, and that's the reality for us in a way, even though we have a VA and we have a democratic country,
Yeah.
very advanced and whatever. The fact is that we have about 11% of population in Israel with PTSD.
Yeah.
That's a research I was exposed a few days ago, and I'm still waiting for the papers, but it's a research from 2018.
Yeah.
And about 75 to 100,000 out of those 8 to 900,000 people are veterans,
Right. That's quite
according to
high.
this research.
Yeah.
From other resources we have between 40,000 to 150,000, depends who you ask.
Yeah.
And about cannabis, I think that people have been using it in Israel for decades, through Africa, it was here. It was pretty much for every village that people was having. But when we had First World War, Second World War, British Mandate, things have changed because people wanted to sell other products,
Okay.
and all of the institutional pharmacy was evolving, so it kind of erased it here.
Right.
And
Yeah.
when I grew up, people could grow secretly, but the government was really against, and they taught us as kids, you could join the club of fight drugs and whatever. And I was exposed to that as a kid,
Yeah.
in my youth, but it was totally illegal.
Right. Okay.
And
Yeah.
while I grew up, I finished the army, I started to utilize it as my own medicine. I still do. And now I do it legally, because it's still in the illegal drugs. But
Yeah.
and now soon they're going to take out the CBD out of the illegal drugs, just the CBD and another 114 cannabinoids and terpenes, I think. They're going to take them out because they can synthesize it or isolate
Yeah.
it or use it
Isolate it.
for profit, but no harmony, no
Yeah.
cumulative effects. And the
I,
THC is still an issue for the system.
well,
They
this
still
is the
dose
thing.
us with all the SSRIs and benzo and opiates,
Yeah.
but the system is still evolving. And I have my legal license to use the illegal drug
Yes. I follow.
since 2014.
Excellent. That's quite
Yeah.
a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, and in the beginning, they dosed me. You can only buy 20 grams per month,
Right.
and I
Okay.
was, and in that time, I was using around 60 to 70 grams anyway. So I
Yeah.
was still had the delta to complete in
Is there a
between.
is there a
And
maximum?
today I have, I'm over the maximum in a way, because I try
Right.
not to prescribe over 50 or 60 grams to no one.
Okay. Yeah.
Before the reform, the people with the oncology situations or even veterans could have 100 grams per month easily, because they were much more easy with it. Now you have over 100,000 people with the permission to use cannabis in Israel
Yeah.
for all sort of things.
Well, looking
So
at Israel from obviously, I'm in Northern Ireland, which is the very top of Ireland, but my country falls within the UK laws, so we can enjoy the private prescriptions from the UK. But in my own research, looking to Israel, Israel seemed to be way out in front where medical cannabis research is, but the publishing of said research seems to be very sparse.
if you ask the community here in Israel, and I'm a little bit connected with a few startups and companies, and
Mhm.
I've been in the scene and I was a consumer. I still use it. It's my main support during the day.
Yeah.
The way the regulation and the way the body that Israel has established inside the Ministry of Health to treat the
Mhm.
cannabis, they call it Yakar, יחידה לקנאביס רפואי, the unit for medical cannabis.
Mhm. Yeah.
That was criminal. That
Right.
was, there was, until a few years ago, they still forced us to send faxes and never replied.
Yeah.
Today it's much better. They have more people working there, so the pressure is a little bit better,
Yeah.
but the regulation is still off. And in the past, the person that was in charge of this unit was just, it doesn't matter what me and my doctor said, he was deciding just whatever he woke up.
Okay. Yeah.
He was deciding, signing yes, no, how much,
Mhm.
fuck you. It doesn't matter,
Yeah.
it's your own life and your entire function in the day. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter. And so they forced me for years to be a criminal and to buy
Yeah.
it illegally.
Mhm.
And it's not only me, I'm just an example, yeah.
Yeah.
My story
Oh yeah.
is
Yeah.
just same as others.
Yeah.
So today it's a little bit better, but there's still much more to do.
Yeah.
And the reform kind of took the responsibility out. I was, a few days ago, I was buying my new supply for the month, and the person that I was standing in the pharmacy where you buy medicine,
Mhm.
he was saying to me, that's new, that's fresh, that's good, that's really high percentage of THC, you should take it, it have good response. So I asked him, yeah, people try it, what they say, how it feels, how it reacts. No, it's new, but it have good response. Like he was just pushing me the highest price product.
Yeah. Salesman.
And I kind of stopped the sale, and I looked around. I saw that there is almost no one around me, like new
Mhm.
consumers. So I won't shy him too much. And I said, stop. You cannot do it. That's fucking irresponsible. I
Mhm.
wasn't using swear words and curse words, but I was really gentle choosing my words, but I was furious. And I
Yeah.
tried to explain him, if you provide someone with an oncology situation, the wrong kind of sativa, you can make his situation worse. You
100%.
can activate his disease. Why? What you
Yeah.
you learn that for a few years to have a license to sell medicine
Mhm.
because it's good business, so you're fucking blind.
I
And I
agree with
saw
you
the other
100%.
lady that worked with him, that she's
Yeah.
new, and she's a new pharmacist there. She was in the back doing to me,
Yeah.
yes, and
Get
she
that
was doing,
straight. It's
keep
great. I
explaining
brilliant.
him. She
Oh,
was
right.
afraid
Yeah.
to do it herself.
Yes. That's exactly
I called for the manager because I know him personally, because I
right.
shot them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that's just one example for how the government take the responsibility to bodies that don't know how to do it, can't see the big picture, just
Yeah.
looking
That's a
for
good point.
profit. And then us as consumers of medical treatment and medicine, and trying to be responsible, trying to make a diary to choose the right breed
Yeah.
that does work with what we want to do and accomplish in our life, when we want to sleep, when we want to be more awake, when
Yeah,
we want to be more communicative. It does
100%.
matter what we put in our body.
Yeah.
Cannabis is not
Oh shit.
just a magic.
Kowalski's in the waiting
Take a
room.
puff and you're okay.
Hey!
Yeah.
Kowalski's in the house. Where's he at? Oh, let him in.
And now we have here in Israel, I don't know if you know, we have Psyche, which
What's
is
that?
What is
it's
it?
inhaler, the medical inhaler.
It says
All
he's.
right.
Hold on, we got to
Uh,
figure something out. There's a situation.
There's a
Kowalski
situation.
trying to join for like 30 seconds. Break, break, break.
Nahum, can I ask you another quick question just while we're waiting on Kowalski?
Always.
Um, did you join the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force? Did you join them voluntarily or is it compulsory?
Well, it's a funny situation here in Israel because we do have mandatory
Yeah.
service, but most of the population does not qualify or does not want to serve. So
Okay.
about 40% of population does serve,
Yeah.
and only less than 10% of those 40% are combat or
Right.
support of combat,
Yeah.
and only 1.5% of them do reserve, active reserve.
Reserves.
So yeah.
'Cause I remember this
But
is
I volunteered to a
right.
unit you need to volunteer to. So,
Mm-hmm.
and they
There's
did the mistake to accept me. So,
well, this is the reason why I'm
Robert,
asking. Is do you feel that maybe obviously you volunteered, but say you hadn't volunteered and it was the compulsory bit that you've done, if you've then maybe developed some sort of PTSD or something because of that tour, would you then feel that maybe the Israeli government could be doing more for the likes of the IDF?
um, let me see if I understand the question.
Do you think
Um,
do you think that the the problems that you have got because of your military background, if that military background was involuntary, would you then hold your government accountable for making you do the military service in the first place? If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
well,
No?
yeah. It's a debate now in Israel,
Right.
in the big sphere of our politics. The main bodies that object, to my opinion, are fucking crazy, unhuman, religious and fanatics
Yeah.
government,
Yeah.
are the veterans. They
Yeah.
called brothers in arms.
Mm-hmm.
The main body that lead the resisting the undemocratic moves. Uh,
That's fantastic.
so
That's great.
so
Thank you.
it's if you hear the last, if you go and see the words that are I don't know, top commanders, our
Yeah.
former chief of staff and everyone say, the the majority of them are saying, people need to stop serve because that's not the values that we signed up for.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
Well,
a big debate. You have kids
yeah.
that need to serve in the army that now saying we're not going to serve this army.
Yeah. Well, obviously
But
it's
now it's a
different
good
for
time to
yourself.
do around what we skipped in the beginning because we didn't do
Yes.
any introductions.
Guys, thanks very much
So,
so far. I really
and then
appreciate that.
we dive back to the conversation. So I say
Rico's
coffee
muted.
guy or
Rico and Kowalski's muted. It's just that they've left us to it here, so they have.
I was just like, go. You're unmuted. It's like who's gonna be the first to volunteer? So everybody stares at each other for 20 minutes. I know what happens to volunteers, they say.
Okay, so I'll start.
I'm gonna turn this motherfucker off. It's not confirming any other weird
I know what's going to
theories in our
happen to
conversation.
volunteers, so I'll start.
There you go.
Okay, so I'm Nachum Lomo Friedman. I'm 39 years old, veteran from Israel, from the IDF. Served in the Paratroopers Brigade, in the reconnaissance unit. I'm married to Meital. I'm father to Mayan. He's a 3 years old, really magical boy. He will never be a combat fighter in the IDF or any other army because he was born with a heart condition. So will never be medically approved to medically harass himself. So that's fine. That's me in a nutshell. I'm working in advocacy for trauma for a long time, for working with nature, for cannabis issues. I got into the international community in the last 2 years in a way. And I met those two lovely gentlemen here. And we're meeting for quite a while and working together to promote less stigma, better communication, flow of information, and in all kind of prisms in the respective fields for veterans and humanoids and nature, because from our experience, we understand that we are not disconnected from anything, not from the soil, not from the water, not from the air, not from the society around us. So that's me, and that's kind of an intro to Rico, Robert, or you.
Fantastic. Who's going next then?
Get it,
Right,
Kowalski.
next. Nico, you want to go next?
Kowalski, go for it. Do it, dude.
He's just chilling. He's just chilling with his joint going, I'll just let these lads carry on here.
Just wants to look like the mysterious motherfucker in the corner or something. Come on, man.
Well, here we go.
Yeah. Did his camera freeze?
I think so. It might have froze.
Ooh. All right. Hey, there he is. That's what's up. Boom. Your camera froze, dude.
Yeah, so my signal's going in and out. So I missed all that because it was working on kicking me off as Nachum was finishing up his talk. So he had froze and then everything had froze and then it kicked me off and it let me come back on. So it's that time. So all the kids are getting home from school and jumping on all of their games and computers and stuff. So everything's just overloaded here right now. But I'm Robert. I'm from Northeast Ohio. Served in the Air Force from 2006 to 11 as security forces. So I was military police equivalent, but spent more time of my service with the Army than I did with the Air Force. And did 2 combat tours to Iraq. One after I got out of service, and I was started treating myself with cannabis while I was still active duty. Got kicked out of the service for treating my PTSD symptoms with cannabis, and then jumped right into pretty much self-healing with cannabis, and through that I found cultivation as a therapy potential. And so I utilized cannabis cultivation for a while as part of my cannabis therapy, or my mental health therapy. And then after I was told that my grandmother was dying of colon cancer, I jumped into like the cannabis advocacy realm, taking what I learned in Arizona in an early medical program and product availability led me to coming back to Ohio, trying to treat my grandmother, and learned a real valuable lesson on, one, that I can't save everybody, but two, the benefits of end of life care. And it was through the benefits of the end of life care that I saw with my grandmother that really was the driving force for that you're on the right path of doing something and healing, especially a generation that was coming from drugs are bad, just say no, cannabis is the worst thing you could be doing. And there I was, I treated my grandmother for 2 months on cannabis edibles. And then so I then transitioned into full-time cannabis advocacy, worked on a voter initiative to try and legalize rec here in Ohio. Didn't work out. Focused my attention then to the veteran side of the house on harm reduction and suicide prevention, while utilizing cannabis as a means and modality of achieving your goals. And through that work, it led me to creating a nonprofit, Veterans Ending the Stigma, that used education as the means of creating the conversation and breaking down barriers, allowing individuals to kind of recognize for themselves if it was going to work or not. And then through that work, it took me speaking at various panels. I'm credited for a actual medical continuing education in leadership, where I taught alongside a doctor on utilizing cannabis with anxiety disorders. I'm a guest presenter now for 5 years at the University of Cincinnati, talking on veterans and cannabis and our role playing in the cannabis movement and how it's affected our community. I sat with Ohio's medical marijuana control program as the patient advocate, where I was appointed by my Speaker of the House. And ultimately, I was the patient voice for about 135,000 patients in our state program. I worked alongside a small team at the international level, worked closely in trying to get that changed, and then was able to continue that work with Rico and a couple other guys as far as really pushing the envelope forward and learning more about the international process, or what the international process is doing about it and how we could utilize it. And then for the last 3 years now, 2 years, something like that, I've pretty much been working with Rico every day, just trying to hash this out and figure it out and bitch about it, and then bitch some more about it, and come up with a game plan and just to why we're bitching about it, and then we turn around, bitch about it some more. So that's about me in a nutshell.
Fantastic, Robert. That's an amazing journey. Well done, honest. That's fantastic. I'm really impressed that you were able to represent so many other people. That's fantastic. I've wrote a few bits down now.
Yeah. Ditto. Team rolls deep, son. What?
Yep.
So Alan, we know each other, or we still haven't met in person yet, but I'm hoping at some point we will, especially our mutually shared interests, you know what I mean, in this
Yeah.
field: harm reduction, suicide prevention, providing access to education, uh,
Mhm.
learning, talking, comparing notes, and then seeing, like Robert said, what can we do, if anything, right? Is
Yeah.
this to be messed with at this point, or does this need to marinate for, I don't know, like 7 decades, 8 decades? What's the war on cannabis?
Yeah. Yeah.
So my name is Ricardo Pareda. I am in Tucson, Arizona, and I was in the Army Military Police Corps. I served from 2003 to 2006 active duty, and then from 2006 to 2009 I was on what they called the temporary disability retirement list, which
Okay.
essentially equates to a medical evaluation board for the Army, where I was simultaneously going through um, a medical series of medical evaluations for the Army post deployment from Iraq, and then also the Department of Veterans Affairs tied
Mhm.
in simultaneously for like 3 years. And so during that time, I ran the gamut of the pharmaceuticals that were available.
Yeah.
Basically, every program that was available or is available within the VA, I've either been exposed to it firsthand, or I've heard about it through somebody who has.
Mhm.
In the almost 20 years I've been exposed to the system now on that side of the house. So
Yeah.
in 2009, I received my honorable discharge and was medically retired from the Army, and just kind of, well, I had reached a low point, right? At that
Yeah.
uh, divorce,
Did
foreclosure on a home.
did you want the, obviously were you able to, did in your head did you still feel that you were able to perform active service?
Uh, well, that's a tough question. Where I was at, I was pretty much done with. So I signed up out of 9/11.
Hmm. Yeah.
One of many, many, many people who watched that shit go down on the TV that day, and
Hmm.
I was like, what, late, like 19, I think, something like that. And I was nobody, dude. I was a high school dropout. So again,
Hmm.
had been involved with gangs and shit, and just doing real scumbag shit, and had no future really,
Yeah.
other than blue collar work and just fucking, if you're gonna be dumb, you got to be tough kind of shit. So once I saw that, I was like, oh fuck, well, let's go. I don't know what's going on. Let's go. That's not cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm here for it. And so I had an opportunity to join into a branch that my family has a history with. My grandfather was in the military police corps. My
Yeah.
cousin, after the attacks, had joined up. He had gone to college and all that stuff. Good guy. Um, and he had gone off into the military police corps. So
Mhm.
after jumping a bunch of hurdles to get my qualifications and stuff, I was then able to join the military. Right. It took me about a year and a half to get my,
Yeah.
like, all my paperwork squared away and figure out what I was going to do and all this stuff. Now, right at that moment, I got shipped out to boot camp, and within a couple months, it was shock and awe in Iraq. And mind you, like, everybody they said that had attacked us was in Afghanistan. And I grew up, my neighbors going off to fight in the Persian Gulf War, the first one in
Yeah.
the 90s. And I remember there, like, being in the airport when they come back, watching. It was like one of the first wars that we were watching on live unfold. Like,
Hmm.
whoa, what is this? Like, this is crazy. Like Patriot missiles, Scud missiles, all that crazy shit. Um, Going into Israel and all that other crazy shit, dude. Um, Coincidentally, hi. Anyway, but that situation had been essentially dead for all intents and purposes, with as far as the public saw it, for a long time. Iraq.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was just like if we weren't going to invade when he killed all the Kurds,
Hmm.
he poisoned his own people when he dropped that gas on us, all those people, and all the other stuff we were doing. Like, I think the rest of the people just figured we were never going to go do anything. Then he was just going to be another asshole out there that eventually, hopefully, would croak, and his fucking crazy ass kids would just get their comeuppance at some point, get the Mussolini treatment. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so, having joined, I guess naively, I was like, "Oh, we're gonna go to Afghanistan and nowhere else, right?" It's like there's nowhere else possibly that you can go once you swear an oath to sign up into the military.
Hmm.
I was stupid, but I do distinctly remember in basic training in my bay feeling, "Fuck, that's where I'm gonna go, Iraq." Like whatever I thought was gonna happen, and I'm like, "Here's the okie doke."
Hmm.
And so at that point, I was like, "Well, whatever, dude, I'm in it. You're in it. You're not going to walk away now. You're in it." And so when I got to my unit in Germany, I almost immediately started training up. They started
Yeah.
who was going to go and started putting a platoon together and stuff like that. And I wasn't happy about it. There were a lot of people that were kind of jubilant about it. I was like, whatever, dude. Like, you have no fucking clue. You have no clue what we're about to walk into.
Yeah.
None of us do. Even though regardless of whatever training we were doing, which was good, which was cool, which was useful, like get familiar with whatever you can. But once we were there and I got to see firsthand the debathification of Iraq and what
Hmm.
L. Paul Bremer's dumbass did with just firing the army, basically, and the government officials who had anything to do with the Ba'ath Party or Saddam's politics,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden allowing Muqtada al-Sadr to come back when, I mean, he's got beef. His dad was fucking murdered through some shit with US back in the day, and that's why he had to take his ass up into Iran. Oops.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so when we let all that, basically George Bush, Donald Rumsfeld, Dick Cheney, and these other dipshits created a ring where all the bad guys, all the fucktards, anybody who had anything to fucking get off their chest, whatever they wanted to do, start whatever group, Al Qaeda in Iraq, even if nobody likes you, fucking the Muqtada al-Sadr, his army, the Mahdi militia, whatever the fuck it is, dude, the Rainbow Coalition, fuck you guys, whatever you got, bring it. We're here to fight.
Hmm.
This is what we've identified as our turf, and this is where we're gonna get down. All the shit that was going on in Afghanistan, 2004, 2005, 2006, got neglected. And
Hmm.
so it gave the Taliban an opportunity to come back, reinforce themselves, get even stronger. Meanwhile, fucking the fuckboys that we were looking for at the initial shit after 9/11 were hiding in Pakistan.
Hmm.
And the motherfuckers knew it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody fucking knew it. He's right down the street from the fucking military compound.
Hmm. Yeah.
I digress. So when I was over there seeing all this shit firsthand in 2004, 2005, both Fallujah campaigns and shit like that, seeing just all kinds of gnarly shit of what humans can do to each other, bro. And then looking at my own chain of command, like, man, fuck these stupid motherfuckers outside of my squad.
Yeah.
Right? Like my company commander, the battalion commander, fucking like goons, jackasses, fucking dipshits out there to get something on their fucking resume so that then they can go and do the ladder climbing and then fucking after their military career, their punk ass get hooked up at some corporate 500 shit.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, all the grunts who actually do the fucking fighting, right, get dosed up, put in mental fucking straitjackets by the VA, get fucking ignored, and whenever they have the nerve, the gumption to speak up for themselves, right,
Hmm.
are shamed. Right? There's a lot of hero worship in the United States, but it's dependent upon which class you fall into. If you fall into a particular fucking like box, you're this group's type of veteran, they'll give you whatever the fuck you want. You want trips, you want swag, you want fucking access to whatever. You want to get a bill named after you. You got some beef, you want to come over here and present your case on the fucking House floor. Come on. I got your back. I'll pay for your trip. I'll fucking go and use my political capital to make sure that Senator Fuckstick knows that you want to speak to him and that you want to fucking present your case at whatever hearing they have next. Right? It's a joke. Meanwhile, fucking we're inundated with big ass American flags at every sporting event, right? Debates on whether or not it's okay to take a knee before the anthem, during the anthem, after the anthem. Can we take a knee at all? Right? Is it okay to identify anything that's wrong or that we
Yeah.
feel in the society without it immediately getting shouted down? So the transition for me was rough, man, to try to bring this back home so I'm not taking over the conversation with my bullshit. You know what I mean? But when I finally got to a place where I had put this shit down for the most part through
Mhm.
therapy, years of therapy, dude,
I would say so.
inpatient psychiatric ward time.
Yeah.
Not fun, fucking bullshit, but
Mhm.
necessary because I was in a bullshit place.
Yeah.
And in 2010, I decided, through the advice of a therapist after getting real close to suicide, to give school another shot. And there had been this program that just started up in 2008. This is now the 2009 timeframe
Yeah.
that I told about this program. So it was within a year of the program starting up. And I took my therapist's uh, invitation to go over and see what's up. I decided to show
Yeah.
up. There was a
Yeah.
hand that was extended. It was one of those moments. It was a choice moment. The other side was not good.
Yeah.
The other decision, stay home and just sit there and stew in the bullshit and whatever the fuck else was going on until it was too much, and I did pull that fucking trigger. And so
Yeah.
anyway, I didn't do that. I showed up to the school and I was amazed at the type of services and resources they were providing at the University of Arizona, the Veterans Education and Transition Services Center.
Yeah.
And then they were hooked up with the Student Veterans of America, which is a national program that assists veterans in their transition from military life into academia and then into the
Yeah.
professional realm, right? Wherever that may be.
Yeah.
So I got hooked up with a bunch of people, a bunch of organizations doing a lot of different types of work for that organization, for the University of Arizona, right? Led to a number of fellowship opportunities that I accepted.
Yeah.
And that led me then to, same as Kowalski, local, state, federal, and then now
Yeah.
international work where we're having great conversations, chopping it up, learning from one another, comparing
Mhm.
notes and best practices, really, so that we can
Yeah.
encourage each other, right? In this fucking fight that, if I may be so bold as to categorize it for the group, as in bullshit.
Yeah. It is.
I thank you. I'm gonna shut the fuck up and put my rant down now. I appreciate everybody's patience.
Fantastic.
Please tell us
That's
about yourself, dude.
yeah, no worries. Rico, that's fantastic. And I know we've met before and we've had a chat a few years before, but that's a real more that gives me more of an idea where you're coming from. And I'm really, really glad that you're confident enough to share it with me. And of course, if you publish this, the coffee break stuff, you guys are doing fantastic work. So myself, I don't have a military background. I'm actually just a fork truck driver. That's what I used to do. I left school, no qualifications, went to the local factory and just stayed there for about 15 years. I always liked smoking cannabis, but in the UK, just as you say, there's the reefer madness. So everybody thinks it's bad. Everybody lumps it in with when they're talking about cocaine and heroin. Cannabis is always mentioned. The police force are always publishing things on their social media about cannabis seizures. Very, very few publish, heroin seizures or prescribed drugs that aren't prescribed. So like, you know, if they come into your house and you have like a shit ton of like, say, Oxycontin or something, but you don't have a prescription, there's a lot of that over here in the UK. People will get a prescription for free off the government for opioids and then sell them. They're not taking them, they're selling them. So that's a big problem over here. I got caught up in that. So I started to take tramadol. I think over in America, it's similar to Ritalin. So I started to take that when I didn't need it, just to go to work and have a buzz. But over the course of working there, I started to take more. And then a couple of people in my circle of friends had overdosed and died. So I don't know if they did it on purpose or not. I don't know, but none of us were really in a good place. Northern Ireland itself, it's very, very much, it's I grew up in what's known as the Troubles. So Northern Ireland and Ireland itself, it was split. I don't know if you guys are clued up. It's very, very similar. It's very similar to Israel and Palestine. It's the same sort of vibe if you live there. You know, the international view of these things is completely different than actually living in these places, as I'm sure you know. So a lot of people in Northern Ireland would have been divided. And the division here, as is near enough everywhere, is religion. But it's not two separate religions, it's two factions of one religion. So Ireland and the UK, yeah, it's crazy, dude. Apparently we're all Christian over here, okay? So that's the main religion in the UK is Christian. So you can have, obviously you've got Roman Catholic and you've got Protestant. There's about 6 or 7 others, but that's the two main ones. So Northern Ireland would be predominantly Protestant and the rest of Ireland would be Catholic. So there was a lot of confrontation, a lot of murders, a lot of shootings, a lot of gang war. And of course, on one side, you've got the British Army as well, who are the likes of Special Branch. It's like Special Branch is like the CIA. You know, they're in the background in the suits, but they don't actually, you know, come out to play sort of thing. But they're the puppet masters in the background. So, in my own personal opinion, you know, the whole conflict was orchestrated by the higher ups, as we all know. These guys in suits, you know, you guys had Bush over here. We had Blair. These guys in suits, they're war criminals. You know, they're sending people all over the world for their own agendas. You know, and it's not clear, and it should be. It only seems to be like 10, 20 years after the fact that these sort of things come to light. So in Northern Ireland, everybody near enough has PTSD. I remember walking through Belfast City when I was a young man, and it was normal for us to have security checks, people checking your school bags, your mother's handbags. If you were coming past the checkpoint with shopping, you know, you were having to put all your shopping out. And looking back on it now, I see it more as just a show to scare the public, to keep the public scared and divided. Because as long as we're all divided, we're not going to actually be sitting like we are now saying, here's what's actually important, because we're all too busy talking about other things. But my cannabis journey, I got pulled for a drugs test in work one day. Now I was there 15 years. Everybody knew me. Everybody knew that I smoked cannabis. I smelt of it and everything. But I was eventually pulled. I failed the drugs I failed the drugs test, and my manager at the time, well, he just didn't like me. So he seen the opportunity and went, right, see you later, mate, you're sacked. So I appealed the decision and I started my research. I looked up why cannabis was illegal, and wow, um, I would be now just from that one thing, it was like a domino effect, you know. So now I'm looking at cannabis, why it's illegal, the rise of big pharma, you know, even the likes of human trafficking is now sort of, as I say, it's a big domino effect. Once you start realizing that the people in charge of keeping cannabis suppressed within your government are keeping so many other things suppressed, it just leads into a big, massive quagmire. It really does. But anyway, I appealed my decision, or the decision to terminate my employment. And when I went to appeal my decision, I managed to get about 5 or 6 of the factory managers in front of me. So my 15-minute appeal turned into a 2.5 hour ordeal for them. I mean, I came in with a bit of my file was this thick, and they had to write down everything I said. So I made sure that they had the wee woman, her heart, she was like at the end of it. I said to them, what is tetrahydrocannabinol? You know, I says, why is cannabis classed the same as the likes Schedule 1, the likes of heroin and meth? And then I asked them, I says, see all the opioids that your employers are taking in your factory? Show me the record. In fact, show me how you're keeping a record. And then show me how you can differentiate the dangers, you know, all that sort of stuff. Anyway, I didn't get my job back, but what it did do was I got so pissed off that I decided to launch social media page. I thought to myself, I don't have to go into work every day, so I can start posting stuff up, and nobody's going to be saying to me the next day, here, you're a bit mad posting that. So I done that, and I started, like, it was the Canna-Guy page. You have the Northern Ireland Compassion Club page. That would source oils for people that, you know, like would have cancer and things. I started campaigning for people that were already campaigning against the UK government for cannabis medicine, and believe it or not, there were children. So a bunch of children and their parents. That's who was fighting the
Hey,
government
shout
for
out,
cannabis.
shout out to Billy, by the way. Shout out to Billy.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And his mom. That's amazing.
big time. So I saw wee Billy Caldwell. I saw Billy on the news with his mother, and they were doing a sponsored walk or something, but they were on their own. And I mean, and I was sitting watching the news like with a big joint hanging out my mouth, going, "Hold on a minute, what's all this?" So I just started from my end. I just started to pump the information onto social media and just says, "Listen, you guys, you need to start thinking about this." It snowballed. It hugely snowballed. I was able to campaign for Billy. I was able to then expand and start campaigning for other children in the UK. So Billy's from Northern Ireland. There's other children. There's children in Scotland, Wales, England, and also the Republic of Ireland. In 2018, we managed to get medical cannabis recognized by the government for medicinal properties, which means it was rescheduled. But off the back of that, instead of medical cannabis being available to the likes of the children, the epilepsies, the MS, things like that, it was privatized. So you can access medical cannabis in the UK, but you have to pay a private clinic for it. At the minute, there is only 3 people in the entire UK that have an NHS prescription for medical cannabis oil, and so that's a free prescription from the government. They'll never, ever tell you that all 3 are children. All 3 of them are children. So the likes of the reefer madness in the mainstream in the UK news, I've been fighting it for about 7 or 8 years now, and I do feel that we are making advances. We're helping people get a prescription. They are getting a private prescription, but what is happening is they are getting access to cannabis, and then they're telling their friend. So one by one, in my view, one by one, I'm educating and decriminalizing my community one by one until finally the government has no choice. Because at the moment, they would be very happy to sit and have a minority of sick children and their parents. That's fine. They're in minority and nobody cares because you don't see these people day to day. If they're not in your family or they're not in your group of friends, no, like, let's be honest, nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares. So until those sort of groups become more and more bigger and the voices are starting to get heard and the public actually come on board, a massive thanks to the Charlotte and Billy, because now I haven't spoken to Charlotte and Billy in a good wee while. His case was won. He got his prescription and he's living his best life. But if it hadn't have been from that campaign, I'm not sure where Northern Ireland would be. Any law changes in Northern Ireland, we need to, it's near enough apply to the British government. So when England, when they legalized medical cannabis on private prescription in 2018, the Northern Ireland government had to actually ask to be included in that law change. If they didn't ask for that officially, then it wouldn't have happened. So Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland all have separate devolved governments from the UK, but the Westminster that's where everything comes from. So there's quite a few instances where laws in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland are different, but they're not. It's nothing major. It's maybe wee differences here and there, but in general, I didn't want to get a private prescription. I don't see why you should have to pay for a plant. It's still illegal to grow, even with a private prescription, but I got one anyway. And as soon as I got one, it became very apparent to me. The doctors in the UK won't prescribe you medical cannabis to smoke. They will not let you do anything carcinogenic. So they tell you must vape it. So the likes of a Volcano vaporizer or a PAX, the likes of one of these, a handheld dry herb vaporizer, patients are now using them. They're not smoking. It's a lot healthier, but more importantly, there's flavors. I've always smoked joints, but now I'm enjoying tasting all the different flavors and terpenes. And I was like, you've been an activist for years and you've never even known, but so it's a lot handier, it's a lot easier to share the cannabis stories with the public now, because it's in a healthy way rather than you're smoking, you're hiding from people and that sort of thing. Whenever I got my prescription and I was told you have to vape, the wee light bulb just came on, and I says, if I'm in a room and I have my private prescription and I'm vaping it, what's to stop anybody else coming in and sitting down? And I looked up and I'd done my research, and lo and behold, there was nothing stopping anybody coming in and sitting down. So I opened my dry herb vape lounge and told my social media platform, anybody that has a medical cannabis prescription, come on up and we'll sit down and you can use my Volcano or you can use my PAX. So we've been open about 2 years. We've got 217 members. Most of them came to me without a prescription. So from them actually coming into contact with me, they've then been able to access a medical cannabis prescription that they did not know that they were able to access. And then on top of that, they can actually come and use it, or in most cases, we'll have different strains. So it's like a swap meet for cannabis. So everybody will swap buds to try all the different strains. That's more or less where I am at the minute. What I would like to see is more of these dry herb vape lounges opening around the UK. But the people that have got in touch, the new thing, and it's popular. So I'm getting messages from people going, "Oh, I had that idea, or I was going to do that, or I'd like to do that." I've told them go ahead and do it, but what they're actually not realizing is that when people are coming up to the dry herb vape lounge, they're coming up to talk and to spend time with each other and to pick my brains about cannabis, So it's not a shop. So the people that want them, they're like, dry herb vape lounge, there's money in this, and we'll get people up and we'll make loads of money. They're not able to do it because I haven't figured out yet that you can make money at it if you want, but my main aim is to put cannabis on the high street. So my dry herb vape lounge is right on one of the high streets in a town about 10 miles away from Belfast city centre, which is the capital of Northern Ireland. So we would love to get into the city. Just at the moment, when I say to landlords, I'm looking at a unit in the city, landlord will say, right, what do you do? What's your shop? And I say a dry herb vape lounge. And then I have to explain what it is. And by that stage, their eyebrows up here somewhere, and they're already on the phone going, "Aye, who's next coming to look at this thing?" But we will get there, you know. So that's about where I am at the minute, guys.
That sounds like a great workaround, though, to have as a spot. Right? We've talked about it, Kowalski,
Yeah.
a lot. We wrote about it. We provided it to Congress even, and other people throughout the country and internationally, the United Nations and stuff too.
Yeah,
Yeah, but they can't stop you from freely congregating. I mean, they can, but then they're playing their hand as far as what they're really about.
yeah,
And here in
yeah,
the States, we have constitutional rights that protect us from freedom of assembly.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And
You would
also
look at,
freedom, and also our First Amendment here in the United States, freedom of speech. So you put both of those together, right? They've created things like the Rico Act that former President Trump and his people are getting hit with right now,
yeah,
that they created
yeah,
for the underworld.
yeah,
But
for the mobsters, yeah, and the
yeah, and
gangsters, yeah,
they also going back a long time, like statutes against gangs. Right, you wear certain colors, you affiliate with
right.
certain tattoos, you're in certain areas,
Mhm.
you're doing certain things with certain people. They'll just hem you up. They'll round you up, right? So in those instances, it's like, where'd whose rights go? But generally speaking, how can you stop people from meeting up, having coffee, having cocoa, spreading a newspaper? Oh, hey, you're a patient? Me too. Oh, shit. You have something in your pocket that you're allowed to have? Well, fuck me. So do I. How about that? Well, this
Yeah,
conversation just got a lot better, didn't it?
yeah.
So all of a
That's
sudden, your lounge is really, really a social lounge
yeah,
in the
it
true
is. Yeah,
sense of the word. And if you have your shit, well, that's what you have, isn't it?
yeah. So the maximum every 4 weeks you can get your prescription. So every 4 weeks you can renew it. The maximum that you're allowed is 120 grams. So what I get at the minute, I get 80 grams every 4 weeks. I would get 80 grams of cannabis. So my prescription's for anxiety and depression.
Look at Kowalski's head. Look at
He's like,
You're
wow,
doing the numbers.
we've got this is one of the bags. So this is Miracle Alien cookies in a 10-gram bag, and there's my prescription. So I can get 12 of these bags every 4 weeks if I had the budget for it, but it would be very expensive.
Is it
But
is there a discounted rate you pay as a patient, or is it just a
believe
flat rate for every dollar?
it is a flat rate, but some clinics do run different access schemes, and the clinic I'm with, they do have a war veteran access scheme. So that's why I was asking Nachum the questions at the start. So if you came to my clinic and showed your proof of military, then you would get discounted on prices, consultations, and other services.
And you said that was on
For me, it's different here
Right. Yeah.
because I go to the pharmacy, I buy whatever I buy according to how much I'm allowed to, and does if it's oil or flowers or pre-roll, or some people have psyche now, that they even don't need to pay because the psyche people made an agreement with the VA, so no money involved for us. Which is the best. You don't, if you need it, you'll take it. Money is out of the way, so you can make wiser decisions.
Yeah.
And for me, I would get, if I'll send a receipt to the VA, they will pay me fully back for my expenses.
Right. Yeah.
But I still, every time I meet with the VA, and I do it pretty often, I try to make them understand they have to take the money out of the equation. So they do started to work on a medical card here. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't need to charge my own bank account for, I don't know, it's,
Yeah. That's
I
awesome.
get 80 grams also, which is a lot in Israel.
Yeah.
It's if I try to put it in euros, it's around 500 and plus euro per month. So
Yeah.
I need to take it out of my own bank account, and I'm living on an allowance from the state.
Mhm.
And to send the receipt and wait for them to pay
Right.
for it.
Yeah.
And I need to do it for that and for mental health and everything I need to do. I need to pay, even to drive from place to place or park or whatever. And they will pay me back if it's related to my injury or treatment.
Right. Yeah.
So it's really messy, and we lose, not only me, but many veterans lose many of their resources,
Yeah.
even time and patience to do all those legal actions.
Yeah, it's not a great, it's more like it's possibly set up for you just not to do it, maybe, especially if you would struggle to get onto that ladder, you know, if you don't have the money to start with, that would be very difficult. Over here in the UK, it's dear. The doctors, you have to pay. It's usually about £50, which is about €60. You have to pay that to just talk to the doctor. You can, because you're paying, you can have a back and forth with the doctor and agree on an amount. If you really insist, um, he'll give you what you want to pay for. You can get oils and flours, capsules. They're working on vape pens over here as well, but in general, most people are just getting the flour. There's plenty of strains, but it does work out cheaper than buying black market. But again, you still can't grow over here. Are you able to grow a plant with your prescription?
What was the question?
Are you able to grow a plant with your prescription? No,
No.
no, me neither. Oh, hold on, I'm missing the chats here.
I am. Kowalski, are you?
No, I'm not.
His representative who sits on the cannabis caucus, Representative David Joyce, we were in a meeting one time, not long ago, and we were having a conversation about this, basically the same kind of deal. And we got to this point in the conversation about growing. And so I immediately just left everybody else talking. The congressman, his aides, and then those of us, Kowalski was on the call and others. I went out to my patio here and I grabbed my thing with plants. I come back in and I just boop, put it right back here. So the ladies joined us. And when it was my turn, I said, "Here you go. All right. Here's what we're talking about." and he was like, "That's it?" And everybody was like, "Yeah, that's what a plant looks like." Right. And so he looked at Kowalski's box on our Brady Bunch thing here, our setup, our gallery setup. And he looked at me, he's like, "Hey, Robert, man, have you ever thought about growing your own at your house?" Everybody who knew about the law just looked at Kowalski like, "What's he gonna say?" And Kowalski was like, "Actually, sir, I can't."
Yeah. Well, some of the people that I come into contact with, majority of them works medical cannabis. They 50% of the people I meet don't use cannabis, so they're completely new to it. So, having to explain the fundamentals of, you need a tolerance for THC and you have to get used to it and things like that. It's becoming more and more common for me to be talking about, but I can sell seeds. So if I am saying to somebody here, listen, there's some seeds if you want, if you want to go and grow. But the majority of people that are using cannabis medicinally in the UK, a lot of them aren't interested in growing anything. They're used to going down to the local the chemist over here. It's like they're used to going down to the Walgreens and just buying the packet off the shelf. So why would they have to go and learn how to grow a plant if it's not really what they're into? But of course, you also have the people that have been growing plants for a long time, that grow their own food, and it would be just second nature to them. So I definitely think there's an opportunity, there is a niche where there is people that are maybe already sitting in a prison cell because they've been caught growing cannabis, But maybe in another life, or if they were born maybe 30 years in the future, they might be one of the top professional growers in the world for a medical company, So there's still a lot of work in progress needing done. But it's great to see you guys make so much. America's really, really, really ahead of us at the moment.
Well, I think that's twofold as like us being ahead, because you talked about it before, right? Perception from the outside world and then actually living it. And so perception of the outside world, yeah, America looks great. We got California, and everyone knows about California's weed. But when you start comparing us, and like Nahum's got better access than we do.
Yeah.
And I say that why? Because he has the ability to turn in his receipts and actually get reimbursed for his medicine.
Yeah.
Us, we are stuck in the same process that you're in. I'm going out and finding some doctor that doesn't know fuck all about PTSD, let alone fuck all about the veteran community and ours specific needs based off of our job occupation. And I'm paying them money, and what my money goes towards is them looking at a paper that's provided to them from another doctor that actually has diagnosed me with my problem and going, yep, you got your diagnosis, let's check this box, I'll sign this down here on the dotted line, thanks for your $400. And because in some places that's what it is, $400. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to only have to pay 25, but why am I paying anything for that? And then looking at it for this whole dispensary program situation, I mean, you're taxing patients for their medicine, you're exploiting the sick, disabled, and dying for profit gain and shareholding. And all the while we're getting smoke blown up our ass by the same business people and the politicians and the people that are so headstrong on what they feel is the right program and what they feel is their want and need, to where now you have an entire system that's confusing itself and doesn't even know what it needs or wants. So yeah, I mean, we're ahead, but we're also the problem. So
yeah, that's actually a great point that you've made.
Oh, I got something to say. That's great. Kowalski, say something smart. So, check this shit out. This is, I've been going to the same dispensary now, specifically, for like since this one opened, because of proximity, right? It's just comfort level, all that stuff. Their product, a lot of things. So I've only been going, or I'm trying to only go to this dispensary for now almost 2.5, 3 years. So I have my purchase history, everything I bought for the last 2.5, like almost 3 years.
Wow. Yeah.
And I'm supposed to be getting all of my health care from the VA. I'm not supposed to be paying for, and when I was taking opiates and pharmaceuticals, I didn't pay for shit. They would mail me my fucking pharmaceuticals and stuff to my house. And so when you get here, this is what I've spent in fucking 2.5.
Yeah.
Fucking
wow. That's no chump change, man. That's
so
a lot of
2.5 years, about fucking almost $22,000. And you can see like in the last part of what is that 2020, it's like 875 just because it's the last couple months.
Yeah.
But then that full year, that's what I was paying as a patient. out of pocket. The last 2 years, this last one that's not even finished, you could see how it's even more, or it's getting to be even more than
Yeah,
the last
probably
year.
more.
Those are recreational prices. So
Yeah.
I'm a patient who, because of the certification fuckery and stuff like that, all their fees or whatever, and then plus the fact that I'm tired of going to, like Kowalski said, a doctor that's not federally affiliated, that doesn't know fuck all about the military or my experience or my records, or that I
Yeah.
feel confident that they're going to keep my fucking records and information safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What if they just fucking fold up shop, they stop doing whatever they're doing, and my fucking medical file ends up in some dusty ass box in their fucking attic, only be found by some construction workers one day who's like, who the fuck is this asshole? Oh, hey, guess what? Yeah, no, he's got a public profile. Let's start leaking his fucking medical information to the world. What kind of bullshit would that be? But I mean, every veteran, every individual, every patient that goes through that process, I'm not unique. They have all their information there. And the Americans with Disability Act apparently doesn't apply to us. HIPAA apparently doesn't apply to us, which are supposed to be protections for people with disabilities and vulnerabilities and medical patients and who are doing certain things.
Yeah.
These things that are grandstanded around as far as protections, rights, and concerns by motherfuckers that want our votes and our money. In practice, like, they pick and choose who it applies to. If they don't care about you or your situation or your position or really you, like where you come from, good luck. It could be the most righteous thing, the most obvious thing, and they'll fight you until they die or until they play generational games. Look at, in the United States, Roe v. Wade, perfect example. Women thought that that was settled case law back in the 70s. And now, just because some jackass is on the Supreme Court that was stacked all the while by people who are, oh, watch the Democrats, they're going to stack the Supreme Court here in the United States, right? They're stacking the court here in the United States, and not just in the Supreme Court. That's what people were looking at, but all across the country, hundreds of federal judges all across the country within the court system, in states all across the country, radicalists, fanatics. Yeah. And so that ties us with Israel, that ties us with the United Kingdom and other people who are in it for the money, in it for the likes, in it for the power, and not in it for, like Robert said, the sick, the disabled, the dying, the vulnerable among us, the children and whatever. They're exploited. They're taken advantage of. We've capitalized every fucking thing in our system. Hey, you want to breathe? We're figuring out a fee for that, fucker. You want water? You want no. Nestle's got you covered. Don't even try to drink your tap water. That's poison. That's what they tell us. Literally, the forever chemicals in your water. But go buy our bottled water from our companies that's sucking it out from the fucking lakes that we're telling you not to drink it from. And then just selling it right back to you, saying it's fucking whatever mountain water. Crystal clear. So it's a part of a bigger problem that's systemic for sure, and it's just, to be clear, being able to afford these ridiculous fucking prices is, I'm blessed, and at a certain point I need to shut the fuck up, because there's people who can't afford that. That is a lot of money. It is a lot of money. I, because of my pension that I get from my military service, am able to do that. It's a medical expense for me. And I'm keeping my records, and I'm gonna drop it on Uncle Sam's desk, because there's a bunch of us all across the country. And I mean, I'm not gonna dump Kowalski's, I keep speaking for him and volunteering him anyway, but there's a lot of people who have been shut out of the discussion entirely due to the nature of their discharge.
Right. Yeah.
So all we're talking about right now is just the people who qualify for medical care. We haven't even started having the conversation about the people that they say don't. Nachum.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'm sorry, but I'm sure Robert will have much more to say about it than I am. But they recruited you. They are liable for you.
Mhm.
End of story. What the fuck does it matter? The reasons for your discharge to make medical care. That's a human rights issue. That's a violation, a nasty one. You treat inmates in prison. You have to feed them. You should, in a way, at least in the frame, in the nice frame when they say our values, our vision, our amendment of service, whatever. It
Mhm.
does say you're human. It does apply with the UN, Rome and Paris, all the conferences and agreements that trying to make a better world in a way.
Yeah, I would agree there for
And
sure.
that's contradict the way they act, contradict it. And every time we encounter with that, it takes us away from trusting any system in the future. And
Mhm.
that's a threat to everyone, because we do need trust, we do need communication.
Mhm.
Robert.
Yeah, this is it, guys. I agree. See, over in Northern Ireland, because of our history and because of all the violence that we've had in our communities, there's a lot of people that are in prison. And over the last couple of years, they let them all out. And the one thing that I can relate to with what you're saying there is that, it doesn't really matter if somebody walks into one of our private clinics here in the UK and they've murdered people and they're a criminal and they've blew buildings up and they've been in jail, they're still able to get the medical help that's required, no matter, how much of a bad person they are, or if, they have some sort of other, something else. So I would agree there. And even the fact that there's a done the service, it shouldn't be a problem, or it shouldn't be a barrier for you guys. But as Rico touched on earlier on, these barriers are set up specifically for us, and it's to deny access. The more people that can keep access denied to, the less chance there is of cannabis becoming back to the way it should have been, and that's growing wild. It's not even on our food chain anymore. The pigs and cows would have had wild hemp, back in the day before prohibition. So, even the likes of some of the diagnoses that we're getting over here, like fibromyalgia and, ADHD and things like that, there, a lot of it can be attributed to endocannabinoid deficiency just from our diet, But sorry, I've took you away from what is we're actually speaking about there, sorry. Oh, nah. Sorry, you just talk away.
No, you're good.
This is
I
what
think
coffee hours for, man.
Yeah.
I think I can add and kind of tie it all together too, because really what we're talking about here is government being reactionary. And when you're reactionary, that's when you go about trying to do the right thing in the moment and thereby creating a bigger problem.
Yeah.
And so without having a proper basic understanding or a need or ability to achieve that basic understanding, we're in a constant loop of reactions. And right now the reactions are what we're seeing today. And the one I could use really right now is cannabis use disorder. It is a reaction to a problem that isn't really a problem, but because there is now an abundance of people utilizing a substance, we have to put a term to the fact that everybody's using it, and they're not using it as directed because we haven't provided any way to utilize it appropriately. So now we're in a situation to where everybody's getting diagnosed with cannabis use disorder if you're using it for more than 1 week
Yeah.
or more than once a day. And it's like, but you're not even understanding the very basics of why the individual would be utilizing the substance in the first place to conclude that there is a use problem or disorder, as they'd like to label it.
Yeah.
And what of all out of order is not us or the cannabis in a way. What is out of order is the way the system is unnaturally built. And that's why it collapses. That's why it's dysfunctioning in a way.
It's predatory, bro. And I mean, so war is about who's the biggest predator on the street. You got a bunch of predators, they fucking going out looking for each other. Who's gonna come out? Who's gonna prove their point? And that doesn't, like, you don't need a uniform for that shit. So political violence, religious violence, fuckery in general, and just random stuff. We're talking about things that everybody knows. We're talking about stigmatization, and we're talking about a fuck ton of labels.
Okay.
What do you call something? What do you call groups? What do you call these people? What do you call those people? What do you call what they like? What do you call what they don't like? Right? and then it all goes into the same black hole of dehumanization. And all of a sudden, even though somebody's living next to you, your neighbor, later, Nachum, you want to say anything before you got to go?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. It's nice to meet you, and I hope we'll have further discussions. And
Yeah.
if you'll decide or think about any ideas or adventures, we're here to make things happen.
Excellent. That's
And
fantastic.
I have to cut it short, so
No worries. It's a pleasure to meet you, guys. I gotta go as well. So I'm sitting in my kitchen. They're waiting to get in here to get something.
I think this was a great random session, and I hope that we can. I mean, we might as well conclude it. I'm glad that everybody was able to get involved. See you later, Nahum. Alan, man, thank you, dude. I know you're busy, but we were able to break down a lot in a short amount of time, relatively speaking, I think.
Yeah.
And so to get an idea of where y'all are coming from, because we've heard different things about the United Kingdom and where it was
Right.
at with the reform and all that stuff. And since the United Nations move recognizing the medical utility of cannabis. So I
Yeah.
look forward to a lot of conversations with you, and then hopefully information exchanges, documents,
Oh, definitely.
heads up on some things that are coming. And to put it on your radar, man, the United Nations,
Yeah.
there's an opportunity there to get involved through like non-governmental organization work and stuff like that.
That's brilliant. Listen, guys, it's an absolute, I'm writing that down. It's an absolute pleasure to get speaking with you. And it's crazy that we're all sort of situated in different parts of the world, but yet we can all come together and have a nice wee smoke together. But yes, we'll definitely stay in touch, and we'll get something sorted, and we'll get boots on the ground, as they say. We will, for sure. Guys, listen, it's been a pleasure.
Be well, man.
All right, you
Like
too.
that.
All the best.
Later, dude.